It all started on the first day of class, a fresh semester with new beginnings, fresh hopes, and countless possibilities. I wasn't really looking for anything beyond good grades and some memories to take with me when I graduated. But what I didn't expect was that someone completely out of reach, would make a permanent place in my thoughts. This is the story of a crush that took me by surprise and left me with a lesson I'd never forget. There's always that one class that everyone either dreads or looks forward to. For me, it was Dr. Lawson's literature class. She walked into the room, heels clicking against the floor, eyes sweeping the room as if she could see through every distraction and every half-hearted excuse. And when she started speaking, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. She was the kind of person you couldn't ignore. There was a confidence in the way she spoke, like she knew her worth and didn't need anyone's validation. I thought it was just admiration at first, a respect for a teacher who knew her stuff. But the more I tried to convince myself that it was just that, the less true it felt. It wasn't just the lectures, it was the way she'd tilt her head when someone asked a question, genuinely listening. It was the way her eyes lit up when someone finally got what she was teaching. There were these little moments that made it impossible to not notice her. I'd sit there pretending to be deep in thought about the lecture, but really I was just trying to figure out what it was that made her so magnetic. "Dude, are you crushing on Dr. Lawson or something?" my friend Jake asked, a smirk playing on his lips. I played it off, laughed it away. "Nah, man," I lied. But the truth, it was more than a crush. It felt like something that could consume me if I wasn't careful. You ever have those moments that seem insignificant to everyone else, but they stay with you? That's what it was like every time I crossed paths with Dr. Lawson outside the classroom. Once I was rushing to class, not looking where I was going, and I nearly ran into her. She laughed it off, saying something about needing to watch where we're going in life. I smiled and nodded, but my mind was racing. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh. It wasn't just a sound. It was a memory that I knew would stay with me. It was like the universe was giving me these tiny chances to be in her orbit, even if only for a fleeting moment. And each time I found myself falling a little deeper. I knew I needed an excuse to talk to her. I couldn't just sit in class, quietly admiring her from afar. So, I started asking for help with assignments. It was a legitimate reason, something I could justify to myself and everyone else. But the reality? I just wanted a reason to spend more time with her. "You've got a unique perspective," she said once, eyes focused on my paper. "Don't be afraid to explore it." She had no idea that in that moment, all I could focus on was the sound of her voice. Calm, measured, encouraging. It was as if she saw something in me that I couldn't even see in myself. You know that feeling when you're carrying around a secret so heavy, it feels like it's suffocating you? That's what it became for me. My friends thought I was distracted by schoolwork or just stressed out. But in reality, it was something I couldn't admit to anyone, not even myself. It wasn't just a simple crush anymore. It had turned into this constant, aching feeling that wouldn't leave me alone. I thought about telling her so many times, but what would I say? "Hey, I know you're my professor, and this is completely inappropriate, but I think I might be in love with you?" It sounded insane, even in my own head. The semester was coming to an end, and I knew that if I didn't say something, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So one day after class, I asked if we could talk. She agreed, not knowing what was about to happen. "Dr. Lawson, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She put her papers down, giving me her full attention. That only made things harder. "I don't know how to say this, but I think I've developed feelings for you." She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with this almost sad understanding in her eyes. "You're a good student," she began softly, "and I appreciate your honesty, but there are lines we can't cross, no matter what feelings are involved." She spoke to me like an equal, not like some naive kid. She explained why there were rules and boundaries, why relationships like these could never happen, not in a professional setting like ours. It wasn't just for her sake, she said, but for mine too. Her words were firm, but not without compassion. She cared enough to make sure I understood the consequences and the reality of what I was feeling. And that was it. She wasn't cruel or dismissive. She respected my honesty, but she was clear about what had to happen next. It hurt more than I thought it would, but deep down, I knew she was right. I spent the next few weeks in a daze, trying to process everything. I had opened my heart, and it hadn't gone the way I hoped, but I hadn't lost her respect. And somehow, that felt like a win in itself. It wasn't easy, but slowly, I started to let go of the fantasy I had built up in my mind. I decided to focus on what mattered, graduating, moving forward, and finding a way to turn that chapter into something more than just a painful memory. And with time, the feelings faded, replaced by a quiet admiration for a person who had taught me more than just literature. What about you? Have you ever had feelings for someone you knew you couldn't be with? What did you learn from it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt and relatable stories. Thanks for watching.